Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If we could have you set your cell phones to silent or turn them off entirely, that'd be great. I want to start off with welcoming everybody here, especially Governor Christie. Christie was sworn as the Governor of New Jersey on January 19, 2010, and won his second term on November 5, 2013. Under Governor Christie, New Jersey has taken the biggest and toughest challenges with real solutions and bipartisan cooperation. He's implemented an aggressive reform agenda to restore fiscal integrity and accountability to state and local government. Lowered New Jersey's property taxes, reformed the state's pension and health benefit system, and improved public education to ensure every child has access to quality education. Lifelong New Jerseyan, Governor Christie has a deep affection for and strong commitment to the state which he has spent his entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Governor Chris Christie.
Filled up with Lieutenant Governor at the farmer's market in Des Moines. A lot of people want pictures, and that's a good thing. You know, whenever I go out to dinner, back at home, with the family, people come up to the table and they want pictures. My kid starts getting impatient. I say to remember some kids in my business, when people stop asking for pictures, it's a bad sign. So thank you for your patience this morning. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for your time on a Saturday morning. I appreciate it. People ask me all the time now, as I travel around the country and I go back to New Jersey, my friends in New Jersey say, so what's it like? What's it like to campaign for president in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina? And I say that the most amazing thing is how engaged all of you are in this process in July of 2015. And I will tell you that for folks who are cynical about our political process, and there's lots of reasons to be cynical at times about the political process, I tell them they should come here, and come to New Hampshire, and come to South Carolina to see all of you. Because here you are this morning, on a Saturday morning, taking your time to come and listen to me and ask me questions 8 months before anybody's going to be voting on anything. And that's incredibly heartening for me. It gives me great confidence in our country and our country's future. Because we do care. We do care about our government. We do care about how we're going to represent ourselves to the rest of the world. And we do care about the future of our children and our grandchildren. And what it's going to mean to have this next election go the right way. So I'm going to talk about two things quickly off the top. Then I want to leave the rest of the time for you to ask me questions about whatever's on your mind. First thing is, in a presidency that has been extraordinarily disappointing for the American people. What this president has done in the last 10 days, in my opinion, is the worst thing that he's done in a disappointing presidency. This agreement with Iran is going to make America more vulnerable and less safe, and it's going to make the world a less safe place. When you think about this, the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world is now on a glide path to a nuclear weapon. And this president is doing so willingly. But the worst part of it, you go through the parts of the agreement that are bad, right? You know, that he's going to lift the conventional arms embargo against Iran in 5 years. He's going to lift the ban and the embargo on technology for ballistic missiles in 8 years. And the fact that, you know, this agreement is going to give Iran about $150 billion in cash. Believe me, everybody, they're not building highways with that. They're going to give it to Hezbollah. They're going to give it to the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They're going to do it to create all types of tumult around the world. But the worst part of this is, you know, I've had my disagreements with the president. I've worked with him when I needed to. But the fact is, we only have one president at a time. And the worst part of this is, the President of the United States last Tuesday looked us in the eye and lied to us. Got on national television with the Vice President and said, we don't have to count on trusting Iran in this agreement. This agreement is based on verification. And he said, anytime, anywhere. You'll remember if you watch. He said, anytime, anywhere, we can verify whether the Iranians are complying with this agreement. It's a lie. Here's how the process works. We want to inspect some places we think they're cheating. We make the request. The Iranians can say no. Then when they say no, it goes to an arbitration panel where Iran has a vote. Then the arbitration panel has 24 days to decide whether or not we can have access to the site when we think they're cheating. Listen, I'm a former prosecutor. I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey for 7 years under President Bush 43. And that's like me going and getting a search warrant, because I think criminal activity is going on by someone, get a search warrant for their house. I go in the house, I knock on the door, I say, I have a search warrant to search your home for evidence of criminal activity, and I'll be back in 24 days to see if there's any evidence of that activity. Now listen, even the stupidest criminal in New Jersey is going to get that stuff out of there in the next 24 days, right? We pride ourselves on having some of the stupidest criminals in America. But even so, even those criminals, they're going to get that evidence out of there. And the Iranians are not stupid. The president knows if he told us the truth, that we'd say, Mr. President, go back and negotiate a better deal. We're not accepting this one. He wants this deal. See, this president sees something in the Iranians that none of us see. Many, if not most of you in this audience, remember 1979. You remember the Iranians taking our hostages at the embassy. You remember them burning our flag. You remember them screaming death to America. And by the way, in 36 years since, they haven't changed one bit. Only this president thinks they've changed. The supreme leader, the Ayatollah, just said a couple of days ago, nothing about this agreement will change our attitude towards the United States or our relationship with the United States. Yet this president wants to sign this agreement. It makes no sense. It's dangerous. And if you're Israel right now, when Iran has said that their goal is to blow you off the map, how would you feel about the United States willingly giving that person, that country, a nuclear weapon? So this is really important. It's really important. And here's the thing. People now say, now the Democrats who are desperate to try to save this deal are now saying, well, Republicans are criticizing it. What would they do? Well, first of all, it's not our obligation as presidents. But I'll answer their challenge. Here's what I would have done. I would have done exactly what Ronald Reagan did in Reykjavik in the mid-1980s when he met with Mikhail Gorbachev to negotiate an arms agreement. He thought that agreement that Gorbachev was offering was not good and not in the interest of the United States. So what did Ronald Reagan do? He got up and he walked out. He got a lot of criticism from some quarters, from the media and other places, that he walked away from an agreement, but Ronald Reagan knew that no deal is better than a bad deal. And what happened after he walked out? A year later, the Soviets came back and they agreed to a better deal for the United States that Reagan was willing to sign. If I were Barack Obama, if I were the President of the United States right now, I would get up and walk away from the table and say to the Iranians, here's the deal. When you're serious about negotiating a fair agreement for everyone, you have my number. Until that time, we're going to ratchet up the sanctions and make it hurt. We don't want you to have a nuclear weapon. Second thing I want to talk to you about really quickly is entitlement reform. This is the way I started off this national conversation, was on entitlement reform. And here's why. Believe me, political advisors from all over the place told me, do not talk about entitlement reform. It is the third rail of American politics. If you touch it, you die. Well, I'm not going to touch it, I'm going to hug it. And here's why we got to do that. Right now, 71% of federal spending is spent on entitlements and debt service. 71% of every dollar we spend is on entitlements and debt service. You know what it was when John Kennedy became president 55 years ago? 26%. Now, we need to deal with this for two reasons. One, because these programs are going insolvent. The Social Security Administration says they'll be insolvent in 15 years. But there's been a Harvard and Dartmouth study that was just done that says it's really more like 7 to 8 years. Why the difference? Harvard and Dartmouth says that the government, you'll be shocked to hear this, has made two major mistakes. They've overestimated fertility and underestimated life expectancy. It's a bad combination for Social Security. Then you're going to have more people that you're really going to have paying in, and you're going to have others who are taking the money out of the system now, living longer than we expect. And here's the reality of all this, everybody. The average life expectancy for a woman now is 83 years old in America. The average life expectancy for a man is 79. I see some of you women smiling. Just remember something, 10 years ago that gap was 6 years. Now it's 4. We're gaining on you. And you were expected to have 4 years off from us at the end of your life. You may not get it. You may be stuck with us the entire time. But these programs were developed. They were developed when people lived to their 60s. So we're living 15 to 20 years longer than these programs expected us to live. That's a great thing. It's a blessing. And the quality of our life is better. But we need to change these programs to make it better, to make it work, so they don't go insolvent. The second reason is, if we don't change these programs, by 2030, every nickel that we raise in taxes today will be spent on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the debt. Every nickel. That means the only alternative then to continue to run the rest of the government are massive tax increases on the American people. That's not good for our society. That's not good for our future of our economy. It's not good for our children and grandchildren. So I've said we got to deal with this problem. Go to my website, go to chrischristie.com. It's got a 12-point detailed plan on this that I want you to read. It's been scored. And it shows how much it will save and how we'll do it. But the good news is, this morning with these fans going, I'm not going to go over all 12 points for you. Congratulations. Feel relieved. I'm only going to do 2. Because they apply to Social Security and Medicare. The first one is, we need to raise the retirement age. To acknowledge our longer lifespan, we need to raise the retirement age. I want to raise it 2 years and phase that in over the next 25 years. That means every year we raise the retirement age 1 month for 25 years. So listen to that, okay? Because when the Democrats, when Hillary Clinton tells you, I'm throwing grandma off the cliff, that's a very high cliff if it takes 25 years to get to the bottom. It means gravity has stopped operating the way it's normally supposed to. It means that I'll be 79 years old. Life expectancy now for a man when these are fully phased in. So it's gradual. It doesn't affect anyone who's on Social Security now or about to come on Social Security. It affects those people much longer away, and we have time to plan for it. Know what our retirement age will be. Second is we need to means test Social Security. Let me be specific about what I mean by that. If you have $5 million in liquid assets, not your home, liquid assets that are invested, that generate for you $200,000 in retirement income a year or more. So you stopped working and your investments alone generate $200,000 in income for you a year, do you really need a Social Security check? Do you really need that check every month? I would tell you, I don't think so. See, Social Security was developed to make sure that people who worked hard and paid into the system did not grow old in poverty. Didn't have to choose between heat and rent and food. Well, if you're getting $200,000 in retirement income a year, you're not choosing between heat and rent and food. You've done well. Congratulations. And this country is giving you the opportunity to do well. We need to make these programs solid for the people who really need them, who would have to choose between heat, rent, and food. And if you don't want to do that, if everybody who says, hey, I paid in, I want my check, I remind you that there's plenty of things you pay for that you don't get a check back for. We all buy homeowners insurance, right? And that homeowner's insurance is there in case our house burns down. We can rebuild it. You own your house for 30 years, your kids are grown, you decide you want a smaller place, you go to sell it. So you go to the closing and invite the insurance company and say, by the way, I've never made a claim. My house didn't burn down, can I have my money back? So after the insurance company gets done laughing, what they'll say to you is, what you got for the last 30 years was the security of knowing that if something did happen, we were going to be there to pay to replace it. That's what Social Security needs to become in this country. And we need to move our way towards that, because if we don't, we are talking about massive tax increases on the American people, which is bad for an economy that already is is moving much too slow to create opportunity for my children and your children. And so we need to have this conversation. Same thing about Medicare. Increase eligibility 2 years, phase it in over 25. And if you have over $200,000 a year or more in retirement income from those assets, well then, instead of subsidizing your Medicare premium 75%, which is what we do now, let's subsidize it only 10%. Still get a subsidy, but much less, it will save tens of billions of dollars a year. You have the money to pay for your health care, you should. It makes sense, not only for you, but for the next generation as well. Now, there are going to be some people who are going to tell you we shouldn't do anything. You know, when I put out my plan, Governor Humphrey said, if this gets passed, Governor Christie will be ratified lying and stealing by the government. Let me inform Governor Humphrey of something, and all of you. Some of you already know. The lying and stealing has already occurred. You know, remember the lockbox Al Gore talked about in 2000? I've seen the lockbox. There's nothing in it. It's a stack of IOUs. They're spending the money on the payroll tax now on other things, and they're giving us IOUs. The horse has left the barn, everybody. The lying and stealing has occurred. Now, are we going to be the generation who's going to step up and fix it? Or are we going to ignore it and let our children have to deal with it when it's a much bigger, deeper, harder problem to solve? I'm not talking about this because it's politically advantageous. I'm talking about it because this is what leadership looks like. It's taking on the hard problems and being honest with the American people. And by the way, everybody in this room, in your heart, you know this is true. You know it's true. You may not want to think about it, but when you do, you know it's true. So let's have the conversation together and let's deal with it like adults. I think if we do that, we're leaving a great legacy for our children, and we're preserving these programs for the people right now who are depending upon them. So there's lots of other stuff we talked about. I urge you to go to the website. We have been more specific in this campaign than any of the other 15 candidates on entitlement reform, on tax and regulatory reform, on the role of the nation's military and the national intelligence community, on education reform, and on criminal justice reform. We have detailed proposals on all those, and let me tell you why. Because 7 years ago, a majority of people in this country voted for a bumper sticker. They voted for hope and change. And they had no idea what hope and change really meant. Now they know. And so this time we're going to be smarter. We're going to be smarter this time. We're going to say, you know what? You know what hope and change meant? It meant we bought a bill of goods from somebody who was taking this country in the wrong direction. This time, we want to know what we're buying. We want to know what the next president's going to do. And I want to be the kind of president who, after I'm elected in November of 2016 and I take the oath of office in January, that when I try to do something, no one can say, hey, wait a second. You didn't tell us about that. I'm telling you about all of them. So when we try to do it, you'll know this is what the people voted for. We can't take a chance again. We got to be able to bet on the horse that we know can cross the finish line and get things done. That's what I've done in New Jersey as well as president. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to let you ask me questions. There's only one rule. You raise your hand. You ask the question, I answer. You don't have to fill out a card on the way in and write down your question, and have my staff read them, and then say, let's see, which one of these does he like to answer? Every one you ask, there are only about maybe 10 or 12 people in this room that I know, that I've met before. I'll try not to call on them. I'll call the ones I've never met before. You ask me whatever it is you want, I'm happy to answer. So, yes, sir.